There's a kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It's the silence right after someone destroys you in a room full of people, and everyone is watching to see if you'll break. I know that silence. I've lived inside it. The night it happened, I was wearing my best dress. I'd driven 3 hours to be there. I'd brought a gift. I'd smiled at people who I now know were already laughing at me behind their teeth. And then, right there, in front of the people who were supposed to love me, the one person who raised me looked across the table, raised a glass, and said words that turned my whole world cold. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even speak. I just smiled. And that smile? It was the beginning of everything they never saw coming. Stay with me, because this story doesn't end at that table. It ends somewhere they never expected. And by the time it's over, not a single one of them will forget my name. My name is Serena Caldwell. And if you'd met me 5 years ago, you'd have seen someone who worked twice as hard for half the credit. The kind of person who stayed late, said yes when she should have said no, and quietly carried the weight of everyone's expectations, while they took the spotlight. I grew up in a home where being good wasn't enough. Being great wasn't enough. My father, a man who wore authority like a second skin, had built his entire identity on achievement. And somehow, no matter what I did, I never quite fit his picture of success. I graduated top of my class. He said the school wasn't impressive enough. I got promoted at 26. He said I must have gotten lucky. I bought my own house. He asked why it wasn't in a better neighborhood. Nothing was ever enough. But I kept going. Not because I needed his approval anymore, I'd stopped needing that years ago. I kept going because I knew something he didn't. That one day, the table would turn. And I planned to be sitting at the head of it. The dinner was supposed to be a celebration. My father's business partner, Marcus Webb, had just closed the biggest deal of their careers, and they'd rented out an entire private dining room to mark the occasion. 40 people. White tablecloths. Crystal glasses. The kind of evening where everyone performs a version of themselves they think the others will respect. I was invited because I was family. What I didn't know was that I was also the entertainment. Midway through dinner, my father stood and tapped his glass. The room went quiet. He smiled, that wide, practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes. To the people who built this empire, he said. The bold ones. The ones who took risks. He paused. Then he looked directly at me. And to my daughter Serena, he chuckled, and the room chuckled with him. Who still hasn't figured out that watching from the sidelines doesn't make you part of the game. The laughter hit me like a wave. 40 people. 40 sets of eyes. Some embarrassed. Some amused. Some just watching to see what I'd do. I picked up my glass. I held it steady, even though my hand was shaking underneath the table where no one could see. To bold choices, I said quietly. And I drank. But inside? Something locked into place. Something cold and clear and completely focused. They had no idea what they'd just started. I don't remember most of the drive home that night. I remember the highway lights blurring. I remember gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I remember pulling into my driveway, sitting in the dark for 20 minutes, not moving. And then, I cried. Not because I was weak. Not because he'd won. I cried because I was done. Done shrinking. Done explaining myself. Done waiting for someone who would never, ever see me clearly. To finally look in my direction. That night, I opened my laptop. I pulled up every file, every plan, every project I'd quietly been working on for 2 years. The business proposal I'd never submitted. The partnership I'd never pursued. The opportunity I'd been waiting for the right moment to take. I stared at it all. And I made a decision that changed everything. No more waiting for the right moment. I was going to build something so undeniable that silence would be the only response left in any room I walked into. Here's what they don't tell you about building something real: it's quiet. It's lonely. It's 5 a.m. alarm clocks and skipped weekends and saying no to things that feel good so you can say yes to things that matter. For 18 months, I worked. I launched a consulting firm in the exact industry my father had always said was too competitive for someone like me. I built it client by client, late night by late night, rejection by rejection. I hired people who believed in the mission. I built a reputation for results, not noise. I didn't post on social media. I didn't announce anything. I didn't tell a single person in my family what I was doing. Because I didn't need them to believe in it. I needed it to be real first. And slowly, it became real. 6 months in, first major client. 12 months in, a regional award for emerging business excellence. 18 months in, a partnership offer from the same investment group that had funded Marcus Webb's empire. The same Marcus Webb who'd laughed at my father's toast. I signed the deal on a Thursday afternoon, shook hands across a glass table, and walked out into the afternoon sun feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Ready. 3 weeks later, I got an email. My father's firm was hosting its annual industry gala. 500 guests. Black tie. The kind of event where reputations were made and deals were sealed over appetizers. At the bottom of the invitation, in my father's handwriting: "We'd love for you to come, Dad." I sat with that email for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to send a polite decline and disappear into the life I was building without looking back. But then I thought about that dining room. Those 40 people. That glass. I RSVP'd. And then I made one phone call. To Marcus Webb's new investment director, a woman named Claire Osei, who had reached out to me 2 weeks earlier with an offer I hadn't yet responded to. "Claire," I said, "I'm ready to talk. And I think I know the perfect place to do it." The gala was everything I expected. Polished. Loud. Full of the same energy my father had always lived inside, men in suits trading status like currency, laughter that meant nothing, conversations designed to impress rather than connect. I walked in wearing deep navy. No jewelry. Just confidence and the knowledge of what I was carrying in my briefcase. I found my father near the bar. He saw me and smiled, that same practiced, distant smile. "Serena. You came." "I did," I said. And then the moment I'd spent 18 months building arrived. Because Claire Osei walked in behind me, and beside her was the managing director of the investment group. The same group that had just announced, that very morning in the business press, a major new partnership with my firm. My father saw them greet me. Warmly. By name. He saw the managing director shake my hand and say, loudly enough for the people around us to hear, "Serena, we're honored to be building this with you." The conversations nearest to us dipped. Then stopped. 40 eyes. 100. The same curious, watching stillness from that dinner 18 months ago. But this time, pointing in a completely different direction. My father's smile didn't fall. But it froze. "You," he started. "Built something," I finished quietly. While everyone was watching. The room didn't explode into applause. It did something better. It went completely, perfectly silent. We didn't make a scene. That's not who I am. And honestly, the silence already said everything. Later that night, near the end of the gala, my father found me standing alone near the window overlooking the city. He stood beside me without speaking for a moment. Then, "I didn't know." "I know," I said. "Why didn't you tell me what you were building?" I turned and looked at him, really looked at him, maybe for the first time without flinching. "Because I needed to build it for myself first, Dad. Not for you. Not to prove something to you. For me." He nodded slowly. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller somehow, not in a cruel way. Just human. "You did good, Serena." 4 words. And somehow, after everything, they landed. Not because I'd been waiting for them, but because I no longer needed them. That's the difference between who I was the night of that toast, and who I was standing at that window. Here's the thing nobody tells you about revenge. The real kind, the deep, lasting kind, it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like becoming. When I walked into that gala, I wasn't there to humiliate my father the way he'd humiliated me. I wasn't there to embarrass him in front of his colleagues, or to make him feel small the way he'd made me feel small. I was there because I had something real to show the world. And that's the difference. Revenge built on anger? It burns fast and it burns you with it. It satisfies for a moment, then leaves you hollow. But building something? Becoming something? Letting your work walk into a room and speak before you even open your mouth. That lasts. And here's what I want you to hear clearly, especially if you're in that dark, quiet place I was sitting in that night in my driveway. The people who underestimate you are not your enemies. They are your fuel. Every dismissal. Every laugh at your expense. Every moment someone looked past you like you didn't exist, let it harden into something useful. Not bitterness. Not obsession. Focus. A year has passed since that gala. The firm is growing. The partnership is stronger than either of us expected. And my father, we talk more now than we have in years. Not perfectly. Not without old wounds. But honestly. He came to my office a few months ago. He stood at the window, the same floor-to-ceiling glass I'd pictured in my head during all those 5 a.m. mornings, and he said, "I think I owed you an apology a long time ago." I poured us both a coffee. "I know," I said. "But I think we both had to get here in our own time." That's the part no one shows you in the revenge fantasy, the part after the dramatic moment, when the dust settles and you have to decide what kind of person you want to be on the other side of it. I decided I wanted to be free. Free from the need to prove myself to people who were never going to see clearly anyway. Free from the story I'd been told about who I was and what I was capable of. Free to build, to grow, to walk into rooms not as a shadow of someone else's expectations, but as myself. Fully. Unapologetically. Myself. The night they tried to humiliate me, the room went silent. But the louder silence, the one I'm proud of, is the one inside me now. The one that no longer needs the noise. If this story hit something real for you, if you've ever sat in a room where someone tried to make you feel small, drop a comment below. Tell me your story. I read every single one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it with them. Because some people are one right story away from remembering who they really are.